It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it, because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant pride.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun.
Happy Friday, everybody, and happy day after preseason game 1 or something, if that's a thing. Welcome to Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac. I was going to say Eve. I'm like, it's not Eve. It's the day after. What is that called? I don't know. It doesn't really have a title.
I don't think it does.
No. So we have our first game post-mortem. How about that?
Yeah, there you go.
Paul Dottino on Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. If my voice is a little rough, folks, I apologize. I just finished doing about an hour with our buddies Dan Schneider, Nick Filato on their pod, talking about what we've seen from the Giants. So talked about that game. That'll go up later on today if you want to check that out. But, Paul, we had our preseason game last night, preseason game number 1. Not exactly a high-flying aerial attack affair from either one of these teams. The Lions passed a lot more than the Giants did. Rainy day, though I think in this first preseason game, the Giants wanted to focus on doing the fundamental things well. They wanted to block well. They wanted to tackle well. It's the first time, obviously, these teams have tackled in, well, for the Lions, probably closer to 6 months. For the Giants, more like 7 months since they last played their game at the end of January. And just be physical. Don't have a lot of pre-snap penalties. You know, get your plays in on time. Make sure the mechanics of the game go well. And I think the Giants checked a lot of those boxes. I think they probably weren't happy with the number of flags there were. They probably weren't through some of the penalties.
8 penalties on the Giants. Not a good number. And 5 of them resulted in Lions first downs.
Yeah, and it was you had a hold on a special teams. You had a couple offensive holding. You had a defensive pass interference. You had a face mask. You had a roughing the passer. So these are not like 5-yarders. These are legitimate, big, game-changing type of penalties. You didn't like that. But I'm going to start with the positive. What I liked the most, Paul, in this game, and I wasn't sure if it was you or Jonathan Casillas told me this. After the game, they ran into a Lions coach that they knew coming out of the coach's booth upstairs.
That would have been Jonathan.
It was probably Casillas. He was coming into the radio booth to do the post-game show. And hopefully I'm okay repeating this. And the Lion coach, he said, ran into him, and he goes, look, you guys took it to us a little bit today. Like, in the trenches, you guys beat us up a little bit, and you really did a good job physically with us over the course of this game. And that's my biggest takeaway here, Paul. Giants rushed for 155 yards in this game. And for the first time in a long time, I thought on both sides they actually won the battle of the line of scrimmage. I thought the Giants quarterbacks were protected better than the Lions quarterbacks. I don't know how many times in years past we've gotten out of these preseason games and we talk about how these second and third string pass rushers on the opponent's team that have no chance of making their final roster look like Lawrence Taylor against our third string offensive line group when our quarterbacks are getting destroyed back there. Well, you know what? We had that guy this time. It was Ben Whitley. and by the way, that's not taking a shot at Ben Whitley. He actually has an outside shot of making this roster. But it was the Giants' third string pass rushers that were getting after the opponent's backup quarterback a lot. So I just thought up front, I really liked what I saw from this Giant team being physical and getting after this Lions team, which we all know is a tough, physical football team that wants to win in the trenches.
A simple game plan on both sides of the ball, and yes, I thought the Giants had the edge in the offensive line and in the defensive line last night. I agree with that 100%. We have not seen that during the preseason in many, many years. I think the one thing, though, about the rushing total that's skewed is that Gray had the 48-yard touchdown run.
True, but Tyrone Tracy averaged over 5 yards a carry.
No question. But that's not your typical 155 because there was a long one in there.
But Dante Miller, all 3 running backs were over 4 yards per carry.
Now, what I loved about it is that Miller did his 60-plus yards in the second half. Which you had the back of the roster offensive line, back of the roster defensive line. I get that. But Miller gets in there, and he just played his butt off.
It was more of and for Miller, for the guy that's supposed to be the speed guy, he kind of grinded out those yards.
He-
It wasn't like the couple big splash plays. He actually put his head down.
He
and
came
grinded them out.
close. He came close twice.
Yeah, I know. Arm
And
tackles. Yeah,
he
I
was
know.
very disappointed when I talked to him in the locker room after the game.
Yeah, we aired that on the radio. It was very good.
He was hoping, and because he knew the crowd was getting pumped. They could see he had a chance to break it, and they were like anticipating, and then he just couldn't get it. So, but you're right. Miller ran hard. He ran forceful. He showed bursts of speed in short spaces. Very impressed, really, with Tracy and with Miller and with Gray. This continued the previous week's work that we saw of all three of those guys, who all were running the ball pretty well.
And, Gray had the splash plays, which, by the way, I thought was important for him.
Because he usually gets caught.
He's a guy, I think at the Combine, he was a mid-4.5s guy, like a 4.54 player, something like that. And he has short area quickness. He's good at finding the holes, that sort of thing. But for him to run, and they ran a nice little, on the wheel route, they ran a nice little kind of semi-pick play with the slant running in, or a rub route, pardon me.
Yes.
And it gave Gray an advantage, but he still got behind the linebacker, caught the ball over his head, made a big play on that. Turned a screen pass where there was a lot of guys in the area, and he made a couple guys miss.
He did.
Got 13 yards on a screen. Then the big run. That's the thing with Gray. He got in the open field. It was one-on-one versus the safety, which, by the way, I didn't realize was the safety that had that helmet-to-helmet hit on him during that first practice. I didn't realize it was the same guy, but it was. And he put his foot in the ground. He did that little kind of drop step juke back to the inside, and that safety basically fell down. He sent them reeling. So you like to see him flash the big play ability. And then on the other hand, Paul, I thought it was more important to see Tracy having to almost show off some of the nuances of him running the football, where a couple times there was a design outside run, and he did like a little foot in the ground. He cut right up field inside the outside rusher.
He had great vision and patience.
And he got it up field, and then we saw what we talked a lot about during the draft process, his contact balance on that run to the left, where he was one-on-one with the linebacker, laid a nice little knock on him, even tried to wrap up his legs. Tracy kept his balance, ran through the tackle, got another 6 or 7 yards into the second level on it. So I think you can even argue play to play. I was maybe even more impressed with Tracy than I was with Gray, even though Gray had the couple of splash plays.
Right.
I thought Tracy just did a really nice job running with what was last night with the Giants with the ones.
Tracy continued everything he's done since day one when he got here.
Yeah.
That's the point, is that he's just been really terrific all throughout the entire year. Gray has been coming on lately. Miller Turbo, not Motor Singletary.
Turbo, yes.
Little Turbo Miller has also flashed consistently through training camp. The thing, though, about Gray, when he came out of school, I remember talking to a couple of our scouts, and I said, the thing that's missing from him is long speed. He's going to get caught after 30 yards, 35 yards every time. He can't score from anywhere on the field because he runs out of gas, and he just doesn't have the long speed, the home run hitter, so to speak. And last night, he made the juke, left the defensive back in his wake, and there was one other defensive back who had a chance at him. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, that's Gray. He's going to get caught. It's a nice play. It's a nice run. It's great jukes. We know he's got them, but he's not going to make it to the end zone. And somehow he outlasted that DB and made it to the end zone. And I thought that, to me, was a good sign, because maybe, just maybe, he's got a little bit more long speed than we were giving him credit for.
Yeah, I thought it was a nice play. Running game I thought was fantastic. Drew Lock, actually, I think it was Drew Lock in the post-game interview. He was asked, and he goes, he better not get caught from behind on that. And he's like, and he didn't. He scored the touchdown, which was funny. Drew Lock was also asked in the post-game how he thought he played in the game. And I will imitate the answer for you, because it was just really funny. He goes, I could have been a lot better.
See?
That was the quote. Very self-aware. He was not happy with himself. We didn't actually get any audio of him talking about the pick in general, but I'm sure not very pleased. Basically throwing.
He shouldn't be.
Throwing to the safety that was. And you go back, and I watched the game over on All-22 this morning. That safety did not disguise. He did not come there late. They started in too high safety. He dropped right into the middle of the field. He was sitting there waiting in the spot. And by the way, the quarterback beat the receiver to the spot too. Mm-hmm. So
Hodgins was the intended receiver.
Yes, it was just not a great decision by Locke trying to get it into that spot in the middle of the field. And we saw a couple other plays where Locke made some plays. It was funny. I thought, Paul, and I'll get to that in a second, but give me your take on Locke first before I can make my next point.
Well, one of the things that Dable likes about him is that he will zip the ball into a tight spot, and he's not afraid.
That was a little too tight.
Too tight. Holy smokes. So I'm down on the Giants sideline, and I'm, of course, always ahead of the play. And when I saw him look that way, because he was looking toward me, down the right seam, right? And Hodgins makes the in cut to go in, and I'm like, no, don't throw it. He was looking right at him. And there was the corner there who beat him to the spot. There was the safety sitting, and the ball went right to the safety.
It was the easiest interception of that safety you'd ever have.
And all right, so now I'm thinking, all right, now let's see what the head coach / play caller is going to do about this. So I run down behind the bench, and I did give the hit on the radio. I don't know if you had the headset on.
I did not. No.
Okay.
Oh yeah. I did not hear it, but go ahead.
So I ran down to the bench, and now there's the change of possession, and Dable, who called all the plays last night and was telling people how much he loved doing it. Okay, great. I wanted to see how are the mechanics going to work with this. What's he going to do about this? So he goes over to the bench where Locke is sitting, and he asks for the video.
Because by the way, last night is the one preseason game. The first preseason game, they're allowing all teams to use video on the tablet on the sidelines.
Correct. So Dable asks for it, gets the video. He's looking at it, and you could tell that he's puzzled and not pleased at the same time. And he shows it to Locke, and he goes, "What did you see?" And Locke just points to it, and Dable shrugs his head and just turned around and walked away. He was not pleased with the answer because he could not believe that Locke had not read the defensive secondary on the play.
And we've seen Dable have that reaction to other interceptions.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have.
Look, you wouldn't expect him to be happy about.
No, not at all. It was an appropriate reaction, and I was glad to see that even with the dual duties as the head coach, Dable stayed true to himself because that's the way he is all the time. So it showed that he was able to handle the dual job and still do what he wanted to do and not get out of character. And I think that's important because he stressed before the game and then after the game as well, he thought the operation went well.
Yeah, we have 3 people on the line. We have our whole bank of calls full here, Paul. I want to get to them. Anything specifically else you want to mention? I have a couple other things, but I would rather get to the calls that you want to hit before we take some phone calls here.
I would say one thing. In talking to Howard Cross afterwards on the rapid reaction that you guys can call up on the internet.
That'll be on the Giants Huddle podcast. There you go. Check that out, please.
There you go. Howard, I wanted to make sure we get a little promo there.
No, absolutely. Good. Well, yes, but you said it was just on the internet. The internet's pretty big.
I'm sorry.
Let's focus people in here. Giants Huddle podcast.
That's exactly right. And on the Giants mobile app. And all of your favorite podcast platforms everywhere.
There you go.
Yes.
You got it, Paul.
Howard specifically was behind the end zone yesterday doing sideline TV. And he went behind the end zone because he wanted to see exactly what the formations were going to be on the kickoff returns. And we had a few of them last night. And so in talking to Howard on that program, so I'll give you one little snippet of what is in that show. You guys should go and listen to it. But the one snippet was Howard said on every single one of the kickoffs for both sides, he saw a gaping hole open up where the return guy could have taken it to the house had he just gone straight up field and not worried about trying to follow the blockers.
Yeah, here's
which was very interesting.
Here's where I'm standing on the kickoff thing. We're not going to know a damn thing till we get the regular season week 1. All these teams are holding back their stuff. You're just seeing very basic blocking. It's funny, Dante Hall was on Good Morning Football this morning, and I had the volume up as I was going through the tape of the game. And obviously he's one of the best returners in history.
He was wonderful.
And he told an interesting story where he was talking with a now special teams coach in the league, and he placed a friendly bet with that coach and said, I think you're going to have fewer returns for touchdowns than a lot of people think.
Okay.
Because guys are lined up so close to each other, there's less of a chance for these coverage guys to get out of position because they're traveling a much shorter distance on the kick. So he thinks there's going to be much fewer big plays, or way fewer big plays than a lot of other people do, because he thinks fewer guys will be out of position. My counter argument to that would be, well, if you have guys that can really block, like, it's going to be easier for these guys to engage and hold blocks in those shorter areas than it was with the old rule. So there are two sides of that coin, at least in my opinion.
A former special teams coach talked to me last week and thought what Dante Hall thought. And that was the first time I had heard that.
Interesting.
And
Maybe
I said,
that was the coach that Dante Hall was texting
I don't
with.
know. I don't know. And I said to him, "You're really sure about this?" He said, "Oh, absolutely."
Because he thinks that the coverage guys are going to be more disciplined because they're lined up in the right spots.
That's exactly what he thought. That's and I was like, but that doesn't seem to be the majority opinion. He goes, "I'm telling you, that's what I think. We're going to see." Okay.
We'll see.
I was curious if the Lions were trying something when they came up short on that one.
Yeah, I don't know
I wonder
about
if they
that.
were saying what happens if you just hit the 20, like, just right there.
I thought he mishit it.
He might have mishit it too. They did it. It was Gano was funny post game. So Pete Hoffman, who goes in and gets locker room sound for us after the game, got some Gano because he talked about the kickoff rule. So someone asked him, there was a kick that went off, and I think I got caught at like the 2-yard line. They asked him, well, were you trying to kick it that close to the end zone? But they let it bounce. It goes into the end zone. They get to bring it back to the 30. And Gano just looks at him, there's no video, but Gano deadpans and just goes, the ball never goes. It only goes exactly where I want to put it.
Oh, yes.
And I'm like, all right, that's actually a pretty good answer.
Okay.
And then Gano laughed. Like, he knew it was like a flex, but I thought it was
Although
very
I
funny.
could imagine one Jeff Fiegel saying that during his punting days.
That is correct. All right, 201-939-4513. 201-939-4513. Paul mentioned it, so I'll just hit it right now. Go subscribe to the Giants Huddle Podcast. It's rapid reaction with Howard Cross up there from last night. You also have some other really good content. It's still worth listening to. Sean O'Hara and I do a really good breakdown of the 2 joint practices with the Lions. Definitely worth your listen, and he talks about what he's seen from the team over the course of training camp as well. Giants app, giants.com/podcast. Search for Giants Huddle, favorite podcast platform. And if you are, of course, on Apple Podcasts, go leave that 5-star for a review for us. Whether it's Giants Huddle, Big Blue Kickoff Live, it really does help us out. All right, 201-939-4513. 201-939-4513. Let's get to our phones here as we talk some Giants football with you. We finally have some things resembling real football to talk about, and we'll lead things off with Abdul in Minneapolis. Abdul, what's going on?
Hey, guys, what's up?
What's up, man?
I have a couple of observations from last night's game, and I'll start positive, and I'll go negative. Positive, the Giants look – this is the most physical, tough team I've seen in a while. And as you alluded to, they dominated in the trenches yesterday on both sides of the ball, and it was really refreshing to finally see that after a few years of being subpar and pushed around a lot during games. Second thing, I think the Giants ran their first positive screen pass yesterday, like in the past 10 years. And I literally almost fell off my couch when Eric Gray, had a positive screen pass where the O-line men weren't too far downfield. It was just like a real, just a screen pass. And it was refreshing to see that because as you guys know, we've been had some weird reason why we haven't run that in a while.
Yeah, dude, I'll throw it out there too. Also, a number of successful draw plays, which I don't think I've seen a ton of at training camp practices, to be honest with you. But there were a couple really nice draw plays in there that worked too. Kind of those like little delayed handoffs out of the gun. So I thought those are some nice plays as well.
It was a very fundamental game plan.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the negative part here. So one more positive. The running backs look great. I know it's first preseason game, but all three, as you said, also they all had over 4 yards a carry, they just looked really impressive. And I think.
And by the way, Abdul, I shortchanged it. All of them over 5 yards a carry. It was 5.2, 5.3, and 13.0 for Gray.
I know a lot of people were kind of nervous about how young this backfield is, and I think yesterday was a positive first step. Now it's the negative. We need to end this Josh Azudu at tackle experiment. It's a failure. He's getting people hurt playing left tackle, and I think he's lost confidence. And I think he knows that he's getting people hurt. He was drafted as a high draft pick as a guard, He's a better guard. Enough of this him at left tackle.
Now, Abdul, I will say this: that sack was a coverage sack. That wasn't on Azudu. He rode the guy around the quarterback the way he was supposed to. Locke held the ball, rolled out to his right into the player that he pushed around the quarterback.
Yeah, I'm puzzled by how you're blaming him on that one. I really am.
Okay, in the first half, he had a sack and 2 quarterback hits against a second team, right? He's not a tackle.
No, but Abdul, I'm telling you, and Sean O'Hara, and this is, and let me just finish. Sean O'Hara said this on the radio broadcast.
He did.
That is a coverage sack. That is not on the offensive tackle.
Right. You know, once the clock expires, there's an acceptable 3 seconds is acceptable on the stopwatch, and after that, you don't kill the tackle for it.
Now you're right. There was a play where he got bull rushed a little bit, got pushed into Locke, and I think Locke actually got hurt on the play before he came out of the game. If you go back and look at the tape, the way he kind of got hit. Look, Zudu was not perfect in the game. Absolutely not. He gave up those 2 pressures. Again, I'm not going to put that sack on him. He gave up a couple of pressures. I thought Miles was a little bit better than him on the right side than Zudu was on the left. I think all that is fair. But I don't think it was, and I'd have to go back and take a look at what the PFF grade was, and just in terms of what they, not grade, but what the pressures were. I did not think it was some kind of unmitigated disaster over there.
Not at all. And Abdul, in all honesty, you also have to look at what's on the roster. And if these coaches, specifically Carmen Brasillo, believes that Azudu has the best tools to be that swing tackle, then he's going to be that swing tackle.
That's the problem.
And they'll coach him up.
Even if they think he's better at guard, Abdul, which again, I don't know if that's what they think. I honestly don't know the answer to that. But if they think that, trust me, they're going to put the guy at that swing tackle spot, the guy that they think is going to play the best there. And they, at this point, it seems like they think it's either Azudu or Miles. Those are the 2 guys that were starting at tackle yesterday, and we'll see which guy they like better.
They got so many interior guys that Azudu really doesn't have room in the interior. So that's all the more reason why. You're not going to put Stinney out of tackle. You're not putting Runyon out of tackle. None of these other guys are going to be out there.
Well, the Giants have this propensity of playing people out of position.
Put it this way, Andrew Thomas is your starting left tackle, okay? Just be happy with that.
I'm extremely happy. I'm happy with Ilamunura at the right. I'm happy with Andrew, but injuries happen. Injuries do happen. And I highly question if Azudu is the 3rd best tackle on the team. And one more thing.
And by the way, Abdul, I actually just brought up PFF, and I know you hate PFF. Mm-hmm. They did not credit Azudu for a sack on that play. They did not. They credited him for 1 quarterback hit and 2 hurries in the game, and they gave him a grade. They gave him a grade of 64, which is about average. Generally an average pass protection grade for an offensive line.
Well, I'm glad they did not erroneously give him the sack, because that would have been unfair.
Because his guy did get the sack, so I think to Abdul's point, and the next caller wants to talk about Azudu too. I'm sure we're going to have the same conversation. His guy did get the sack, but again, Locke held it and then rolled into where Azudu pushed the guy.
There's judgment involved in these things.
Yeah.
I don't often agree with PFF's judgment, but in this case, they got it right.
Again, just so fans didn't think we're being homers, I wanted to give them a non-Giants analysis.
I'm glad you did.
Okay. And one more thing. Why hasn't Greg Van Roten received 1 single snap at guard? So did they sign him to be the backup center? Or did they sign him to
Abdul,
be the guard?
I don't think they're very happy with the depth at center. And Van Roten has shown Brasillo in the past that he can do it. And so when they got him here, understanding that the competition at center wasn't exactly as high as they wanted it to be, they threw him in there, and he's done well.
Yeah, frankly, I think they wanted to make sure the offense against the Lions was functional in the joint practices, and that was the guy they trusted the most there, Abdul. Just because he hasn't – let me put it this way. Just because he hasn't played guard yet in practice, there's still a chance that he's a starting guard in week 1.
He could be.
So I wouldn't put too much into that. I think to Paul's point, it's more of a – let me put it this way. Once John Michael Schmitz is back, I think Van Roten's playing guard.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I hope so. Okay,
I agree.
All right, guys. Thank you, man. Appreciate you guys.
No, good. Abdul, good stuff, man. Appreciate the call. 201. Again, I'm not telling you Azudu was perfect last night. He did get bull rushed into the quarterback a couple of times. But I thought he was okay, and I thought he was fine. 201-939-4513. Let's go to Rich in Florida, who also wants to talk about Mr. Azudu. Rich, what's going on?
Greetings, John and Godfather Abdullah stole my thunder there. good discussion on Azudu. I don't like him at tackle either. Either if you watch Bobby Skinner on Talking Giants, he used to be an offensive lineman. But I trust you guys that Basillo believes in him. But I just want a friendly reminder to those who maybe forgot last year. I'm pretty sure Azudu is the guy that let the Dallas Cowboy end rusher on the field goal come in and block it. Remember that? And I'm pretty sure.
No, that was actually Andrew Thomas, Rich, believe it or not.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, it was.
I think it was,
terrible.
and Andrew Thomas was also the one that he also committed the false start penalty on the previous play.
He did.
That maybe that's what it was. I don't remember who let the guy in, but it was Thomas that committed the false start penalty that forced them to do the kick over again, which led to the injury.
I'm pretty sure I agree with you on both, John. Here's what I'll say, Rich. To be honest with you, okay, think about this. You're a GM, and you're in the middle of free agency, and you've got so much money, and you got to go try and get some offensive linemen who can compete for a starting job. We saw what kind of dollars the Giants had to spend. They talked even about bringing Hunt in from Miami, right, at guard, but they couldn't afford him. So they wound up buying 2 other interior linemen for the price that it would have cost for Hunt, right? Well, think about
Honestly,
this.
even less than what it would have cost for Hunt.
But think about this. Why do I bring that up? Because if you think that you're going to be able to go out and buy an inexpensive, good third tackle, you're not going to find him. You're just not. So what they decided to do was load up on the interior, get guys who had a decent resume, who would cost a reasonable price, even though they had some depth on the interior, John. They had some young guys who they were hoping would come off of injury, Azudu, McKeithen, right? They had some of those guys already. But they were like, no, that's where we're going to fortify because, by the way, Azudu can go out to tackle. We believe in him. He is a cheap solution out there that we think can become the third tackle. I'm sure that was part of their reasoning.
Paul, I was going to call up a couple of weeks ago because I laud JS for what he did on that line. He addressed need. I laud when he brought Van Roten, and that was tremendous, knowing that what's going on with Evan. But I just these 2 kids, Azudu and McKeithen are a work in progress. So we got to trust the new offensive line coach. I got to laugh at. I don't think Abdul's been around as long as I have. I go back to '61. But we were on the conference call last night, my friend and I. He's in Washington. We're going, oh my gosh! And you know what, Paul and I, we have discussed this screen pass issue for years. Giants, what? They ran a successful screen. First thing we're looking at, where's the penalty flags, right? Right? I mean, we're tainted. Next thing, this is a comment from my friend who's on the conference call. Can we please bring back Mr. Pronunciation himself, Jeff Siegels, to go in and please coach the Irish Hammer instead of kicking the ball straight down the numbers, right into the doggone end zone. How about angling it to the sideline, pin him back there? It's so frustrating to see this kid, boom, he kicks it right into the end zone. Oh, my God.
Rich, he had a net over 42. He had 4 kicks of his 7 inside the 20. They forced 3 fair catches because the coverage was really good.
I'm not really concerned with inside the 20. You should be able to get inside the 20.
But I guess
I want it inside the 12.
Okay, but still, 42.7 net, I think, is what he had last night.
Yeah,
honestly, if you want to find something to complain about, I don't know that he's the guy.
Oh, right. Well, look, I'm not just nitpicking. Overall, last night, I agree with John's analysis. The trenches look much better. But the most important thing I want to say, Paul, I sent you an email the other day. You didn't answer. A week or so ago, in a dead time, somebody was asking, what, as an Italian, what would you never give up? And I'm a fellow Italian from New York. And you said pizza.
Right.
But here's the thing for me, and for you too. Would you ever give up good, stinky, Achurio provolone?
I'm a Belgioso provolone guy.
Really?
Yes, I am.
Oh.
Now, I remember the option which we gave him was, would you give a pasta or pizza? It wasn't anything. It was specific to those 2 items.
Correct.
Just for the record.
And by the way, seriously, try Belgioso provolone. It is magnifique.
Does it good taste and then the nazone, the nose?
Incredible. I'm telling you, man, Belgioso. Can we get them as a sponsor? Somebody call Robertson. Get Belgioso in here.
I don't think we have an
Belgioso.
official cheese. I don't think.
We need to get one.
You need to get one. Belgioso. I'll look for it, Paul. Anyway, great job as always.
Thank you, Rich.
God bless. Have a good day. Go
You too,
Giants.
Rich.
All right, two comments off that call, real quick. I do wish we had Fiegels here to try to pronounce some of these new guys on the team.
Yeah.
Like Ogie Ogufo. I like to see him try that one.
Even Illuminor. I feel.
Yeah, Illuminor. Yeah.
He would say
correct.
aluminum.
That or like Illumination, maybe something like that.
Our first caller said Illuminora.
Yep, Illuminora. Yeah, he could go there.
Maybe Jermaine Illustration.
And as a guy that would talk about the kickers, Mikatamne is not easy either.
Mikatamne is hard.
It's not. You have to really think about it when you go there. So I wouldn't mind seeing him try some of these things. And by the way, let me just say this on Azudu. And I say uneducated because I'm not an offensive line coach. Based on what I've seen in practice, my third favorite tackle right now is Miles. He would be my guy. I think he's done a nice job. I think he moves his feet well. But I don't think Azudu is and again, this is my uneducated opinion. Carmen Basil and these coaches know much more than we do. I don't think Azudu has been. I think he started, had a little first few days of camp. It took him a little while to get into it. I think he's been better since the pads have come on.
Well, I think from what we've seen this summer, he's certainly taken a step forward from when he was thrown into tackle during games last year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we don't need to think about that Seattle game.
That was not good.
No, it was not. 201-939-4513. Run or walk with Giants legends. The Giants will host a 5K run and race. Kids Run, presented by Quest on Saturday, September 7th at 9 a.m. at MetLife Stadium. Net proceeds will benefit the Giants Foundation. All participants will receive a commemorative T-shirt. And after the race, stay for a post-race festival with appearances by Giants legends and a live DJ. Register now at Giants.com 5K. That is all part of the Giants Fan Fest celebrating the Giants' 100th season. It's free and open to the public. Brought to you by Wendy's. Celebrate 100 seasons of Giants football with a ceremony honoring the top 100 Giants, autographs and panel discussions by Giants legends, historic displays, photos with the Lombardi trophies, and an incredible drone light and fireworks show to end the night. Get your tickets now by visiting Giants.com/FanFest. And that FanFest, I believe, is the 6th, right? Pearson, it's the Friday, the Fan Fest? It's Friday, September 6th. They probably should have put the date in the copy. I'll have to add that to it when we read it moving forward here.
I think you should.
Yes. 201-939-4513. 201-939-4513. Let's go to Barry in Indiana next, Pearson. Barry, and then Wilson, you'll be up after Barry. Barry, what's going on?
Hey, man, I want to talk about how we got all four running backs, and they all look solid.
Talk to us. What do you got?
Is it possible that we could keep all four of them?
We had this debate the other day,
We
and
did.
Matt Sytak thinks yes on the 4 running backs. I would find it difficult to keep more than 3.
Yeah. I think we also have to figure now after what we saw last night, and I know Drew Lock injured his hip, and Coach Dable's going to address the media in a very short while. I don't think that's serious, but the truth of the matter
Joe
is...
Shane said on TV during the game he could have went back in the game. Drew Lock said after the game he could have went back into the game.
They
So,
listed him as questionable during the game. So I assume that it's minor, but I'm getting real queasy about the quarterback thing, especially with Daniel's history and now Locke at least getting a little dinged. I'm thinking they're going to have to keep 3, John. I thought all along that it was going to be a waffling thing. 1 week you want to, the next week you don't. Right now, I'm on the side of saying you've got to keep DeVito, and that means you got to steal somebody from another position. Where's it coming from? It could come from running back. I just don't know.
All right, so if they get rid of a running back, who would they get rid of? Because they all look solid.
I think you would either, depending on who they think they could slip onto the practice squad, my guess is that it would either be Gray or it would be Miller. Those would be the 2 guys. I think, just based on what I've seen, I think Tracy's ahead of those 2 guys right now.
I agree.
Brian Dable or the coaches have not told us that. That's just based on what I've seen. So I think it'll be Gray and or Miller, depending on how the next few weeks of camp goes. And look, Gray probably. Look, Miller's a rookie. He barely played football last year at South Carolina. He played in the Ivy League before that at Columbia. There's probably a lot of stuff at running back. Barry, you love the speed, the pass pro scheme that he's still trying to figure out that you can't trust him with yet. if I had to guess right now, I think Gray's on, and I think Miller would be practice squad.
In a perfect world, I would agree with you, John. I just don't know what's a perfect world.
Barry, honestly, if you want to make sure you can keep all 4 guys, hope Turbo doesn't break any long runs in these next 2 preseason games.
Right.
That'll make him more attractive to other teams.
I'll say this.
Right, exactly.
After a slow start to training camp, Eric Gray has picked it up.
He's had a nice week.
He really has
Hey.
gotten it into second gear.
Hey, you know who's looking real solid too, though, on the low is Adam. Linebacker Adam, which I think.
He can't miss those 2 tackles he missed in the second half of that game. But look, he's a really good special teams player.
Yeah.
And if he makes the team,
Right.
he's going to make it on the back of his special teams play.
Okay.
Johnson
Hey,
played
other
well
than that,
last
the
night,
first-
too, and so did Beavers.
Hopefully he's healthy, Deontay Johnson.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna take it off the air off this one. I know it's the first game, it's preseason, but I think we look solid. We look real solid. We look real physical, and it's back to Giants football. I've been a Giants fan since '86. You remember when you see how the Knicks last year they all got together when the Knicks was winning a couple of games? That's how I became a Giants fan. I was living in the Bronx at the time, and I was 6 years old. And, you know, the Bronx in '86, forget about it. We talking about everybody was just going crazy. So when they won their first Super Bowl in '86,
Yes, sir.
you seen New York get together. And I asked my mom, I remember asking my mom, I'm like, what's going on? Why everybody so happy? And that moment on, that's when I became a Giants fan.
Very cool.
Because everybody stuck together, and everybody was rooting for the Giants, and that's why I became a Giants fan. But other than that, look, Giants look solid. Go Giants. Know it's the first game. We're just going to keep it big blue no matter what.
Thank you, Barry. Good stuff, man. I should have asked him how a kid from the Bronx wound his way up in Indiana. I should have asked him that question.
I'm hoping it was occupational.
Oh, I'm sure it has something to do with work. I don't need to just leave for no reason. But
Yeah, why would you want to leave?
look, I'll say this. I'm not someone to subscribe to the old, the Giants have always won this way, so you try to copy that and you live in the past and that sort of stuff. I'm not one that lives by that. I've heard it too many times, and frankly, it annoys me a little bit, where it's just build a good team the right way. And I think that's what Joe Shane's trying to do here, right? You're trying to get better up front on both sides of the ball. That's where most of their resources went. More of a new school way of doing that. Focus on getting a big-time wide receiver in here. They've certainly done that in Malik Neighbors. Put a good situation around your quarterback. Try to get more explosive plays on offense. Give up fewer explosive plays on defense. Prevent sacks on offense. Guys, look, a huge part of winning in the modern NFL now is sack prevention on offense. We went through those stats from Warren Sharp last year. How much your points per drive go down when you give up a sack on a drive. It's hugely important. Hugely important. Explosive plays. We went through those metrics last year. Your odds of scoring on a drive when you have one play of 15 yards or more goes up 20 to 30% just from one 15-yard play. Hugely important. On defense, it works in inverse. If you get a sack, better chance of getting off the field, right? Pressures. It makes it difficult on the quarterback. Not allowing big plays. That's how I think the Giants are trying to build out this roster. I think they're trying to build it out the correct way. We'll see if the young guys on this team that we all hope are going to take that next step, Paul, are able to take that next step, which will determine how effective it's going to be. But I feel like the plan and why they're doing things makes a lot of sense. Now we'll see if the players can execute that vision.
See, this is why Joe Shane is so critical to what you're talking about, John, because
he's not. He is the main star in the spotlight.
No question about it. And Parcells used to tell us all the time, and this is one of the first things I learned from Tuna way back when.
And by the way, just to be clear, Shane's doing this because Dable believes in that too.
Oh, yeah.
They both understand.
Oh, they're on the
that's
same
how
page.
You win.
They are attached at the hip. But I remember Bill used to say, if you just know anything about football, chances are you can come up with a good game plan to defeat your opponent that day. You'll be able to find the paths to victory. It's not that hard. The trick and what makes a coach a good coach is when he doesn't have the roster that can execute that path to victory and then finds a way to manipulate his deficient players into getting that result.
Can your coach...
That's the difference.
Can your coach, and I think this is what you're trying to say, I'll say it a different way. Can your coach put your players in a position where they can succeed with their skill sets.
Again, it's different words, same understanding. And what you have to then have, of course, is health on top of that.
Well, of course, yes.
Because once you start losing bodies, now you have clearly deficient guys trying to do some of those things that you've tried to scheme up and you've tried to help them do, and they're just not capable.
Hey, look, and I'm not trying to be overly positive here. You know, I still remember all you fans got mad at me for trying to be a little bit cautious last summer coming off the playoff win, right? And I was trying to pour some cold water about it. I feel, and this might be crazy to fans because you're coming off a 6-win last year when opposed to last year coming off a 9-win season. I feel much better about how this roster's been built and the talent on it.
Yes.
At the critical positions this year than I did last year and than I did the year before. And frankly, it's not particularly close, to be totally honest with you. I feel much better about the O-line. I feel much better about the wide receiver core. I feel much better about the pass rush. 3 of the most critical parts of a team's success. I feel better about those 3 spots on this team than I felt about probably about any Giants team in the last 5 or 6 years.
Well, I think Brian Daboll, and I could say this to the folks out there, you know, when we have our pre-production meeting for a game, the TV and radio crews get to talk to the coach.
Only in the preseason, unfortunately.
Right. About some things that we can understand better and philosophize with and maybe explain it to the fans better. And I think, you know, while we cannot tell you exactly what was said, the one thing that Brian Daboll did mention in that meeting, and he emphasized, we have a very smart football team. I have smart guys in that room. That's not by accident. That's what he wanted. That's what Joe wanted. And they filled that room with a bunch of guys who really understand the game.
The whole smart, tough, dependable thing,
it's not just a hollow statement.
It sounds like a cliched, hollow statement.
It's real.
Guys, it's legit. Like, they really have brought in guys that, look, they won the toughness battle last night against Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
You just talked about the smart players, and then it all comes down to health and what dependable.
Yep.
Right? Yep. That's what it is. Now, the talent level obviously has to be to a level. You can be smart, tough, and dependable. If you're not fast enough or good enough, it's not going to matter.
Right.
But that's really how they're building this thing. All right. We got another call coming in. That's great. In the meantime, let's go to Wilson in Roxbury. Wilson, what's going on, pal?
Hey, Johnny, I'm overdoing it this week. This is my second time calling.
That's okay. That's okay. And guys, frankly, and I should say that to the callers out there that listen all the time. We haven't been getting a ton of calls during camp, so if you guys want to call 2 times a week instead of 1, you're more than welcome. We're happy to take your call.
He's in a good mood today.
Just don't take advantage of it. I am in a good mood today. You're not wrong.
And by the way, any calls coming from north of the border of Vermont, they're only going to be allowed once a week.
Oh, that's just cold-blooded. Hey, listen, real quick. On the game and on the call with the guys on the booth. And listen, on the game, I said this to Paulie and Johnny and Jonathan the other day. We actually have NFL players now up and down the roster. You could see it.
Especially on the offensive line, Wilson. There are so many offensive linemen on this roster that – and these are the 6th and 7th guys where you actually feel pretty good about them if they have to go into a game.
Yeah, like I said, right, Johnny. And I know it's preseason, but I can't agree with you more. This is probably the most talented team, at least for what I can see, I've seen in a while. I mean, we have NFL players and we have depth, and that's refreshing. And it's also I noticed you can see there's a different vibe, man. There's a different energy. I can't put my finger on it, but you know, it's you can see a difference in the way in the body. I know body language sometimes doesn't mean anything, but it just feels different, and it's it's anything that is positive. I always take it as good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Wilson, I got to tell you, and again, we can't reveal all the things that Coach Daboll tells us in these, production meetings because, frankly, if we would repeat them, he wouldn't tell us anything. So
correct.
We're not going to do that. But the sense that I got listening to him, and again, this isn't something he said. This was my sense of listening into him talk. Right. He feels, and we've been in these production meetings with him over the last 3 years. Right. The sense that I get from him talking about this group of players and coaches, by the way, I'll throw that into the mix too.
Mm-hmm.
I think he feels as good about this group together as he's felt about any of the groups he's had here so far. I get the sense that he feels darn good about where he is with this group right now in camp. Without putting a number or predictions or anything on stuff, my sense is that the coach is pretty happy with where his group is right now in the program.
Yeah.
Wilson, I'll add one caveat to that. Not only do I think he feels that way about these guys and that they've built a smarter, more talented roster, I also think that Brian Daboll understands in his third year as an NFL head coach who has been through some ups and downs, he also has learned from experience about how to better handle this job.
And you know what else? I think he's excited. Wilson, I think
he's loving it.
I think he's excited about calling plays too.
He's loving it.
Like you heard him in the post-game press conference last night. He gets when you ask him about calling plays, he gets a little twinkle in his eye. And honestly, Wilson, I think he's excited about it.
Right. I don't and I think he's smoother around the edges now. He's not as rough around the edges as he was from couple, like, hey, listen,
Well, look, Wilson, it's very easy to be smoother around the edges now. You start the year 0-2, things can de-smooth quickly.
Yes, they can.
Yeah.
Never judge things when they're going well. You judge things to see how people handle things when they go poorly. Again, I don't think that's going to happen this year. I think it's going to be better, but
I think so too.
Let's wait and see.
Listen, and on the booth, I mean, it was great, man. It was like three guys just chilling on a bar last night. It was unbelievable.
I have heard rave reviews about the Banks Sims TV booth. I did not hear any of it because we're on the radio, obviously, but I heard really good things.
Johnny, listen, I think Bob only called half the game.
Well, I got to be honest.
The other half was Phil just butchering every other name from the players and the guys talking about Bill Parcells and showing pictures. It was great, man. I never had so much fun listening to a preseason game. Paulie, it was great. And you know what's great? It was great. I mean, it was a long time coming. Two, all-time Giants Super Bowl winners, and Bob is the greatest, man. So you put all those three things together, and you get something special.
Thank you, Wilson.
Listen, thanks, guys. Thanks for taking my call for the second time. And
no
have a
problem.
Good day.
Thank you, bud. Well, Pearson, do me a favor. I want you to clip that and send that to me, talking about the TV broadcast. I want to send that to the folks upstairs. I think they'll appreciate it.
Yeah, I think they would.
To the broadcast.
I think they would.
And look, we love Phil. It's been great having him around.
Oh, yeah.
And don't think I'm not trying to figure out a way to get him on some of our stuff during the season. I'm working on it. But as if you know Phil also knows how to fill time. So when you got a preseason game that maybe isn't the best game in the second half, can't have a much better guy in the booth than Phil Sims to help fill some time with Carl Banks. It's as good as it gets.
To say that he loves talking football is an understatement.
Loves it.
Understatement.
All right, let's go to Maurice in New Jersey. We got two more callers. Maurice, what's up?
Hey, what's going on, gentlemen? Happy Friday.
Hey, you too, my friend. What's up?
Hey, nothing much, man. Pretty much you guys touched on everything that I could possibly think about, but I just want to kind of reiterate some of the things that I've heard, like seeing Brian Daboll yesterday. It just seems as though, like what the last caller mentioned, seems as though, like, and he mentioned it at the press conference, the conversations and communications with the coaches and things of that nature is just real smooth. I think he's really hired a good staff, like the guy who took over special teams, obviously the offensive line coach, and then look at the defensive coordinator last night, Bowen. Every time the camera seemed to be on him after a third down, he'll be communicating. Like, it was just so much good aura around the situation that I'm just excited for it. And then I just want to give you guys a few names of players.
Yeah, and then Mo, by the way, real quick before you do that, Brian Daboll was effusive in his praise for both Bowen and Gabriel after the game at the post-game press conference. So I think he was pretty happy with how those guys did in game one as well.
Mm-hmm.
No, absolutely, because it just seems to make his life a lot easier, and he's honestly just able to focus on what he loves the most, and that's like what you said, John, just calling them plays.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Maurice, he is pumped about calling plays.
He made that very clear.
I don't think I'm giving away too much. We were kind of talking. He goes, "It's what I do." That was the line that he used, which is great.
And look, real quick, didn't the game feel different? Like the sense of like the chess match and like the game flow. It just felt different. Like runs were called when runs needed to be called.
I wouldn't take too much out of him, Maurice. That was a pretty simplistic game plan.
Right.
I think how the Giants operate offensively is going to look very different once we get to the regular season.
Yeah, that's when his personality will really come through.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. But listen, I want to name a few players, and these are some guys that, I just have a general concern. And some of them are guys that I thought actually played well, like Drew Phillips, one of those guys. And Paul, your guy, Darian Beavers, he was out there flying around. I've seen some of that.
You made some tackles.
Also give me, this is one of my most concerning because he's a good player to me, give me your guys' opinion on Isaiah Hodgins. Is these last 2 preseason games, like are they catastrophic for him? Like, what's his, what's the temperature around him? And I'll take it off the air.
No, appreciate it, Maurice. Look, I think he's a guy that's fighting for a spot just because that wide receiver room is so deep. And this is how I'll put it, and I think I put it this way in this podcast before, Paul. You know who your top 4 guys are. They're in, right? Neighbors, Slayton, Robinson, Hyatt. Then you have McKenzie and Olszewski competing for that punt and return spot and backup slot guy. We've talked about this on the show before. And then you have the last guy who is going to be your combination big body wideout and special teams coverage return guy. Not physical return, but on return teams, on coverage teams.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're looking at Hodgins, Allen Robinson, who I think they love the veteran presence he brings to that receiver room.
I do.
You have Bryce Ford Wheaton, who can be used as a gunner and a hold-up guy.
Like his skill set.
And no one's talking about him. Miles Boykin is a really good special teams player.
That's what he was signed for.
He's big, he's strong, he can run. He's another guy. Those are the 4 guys to me that are kind of in the mix there. And then, Dennis Houston, who frankly has been a really good receiver. I don't know how much he's given you on specials, but those 4 guys, I think, are guys that are competing. And I think the last 2 preseason games are going to be pretty important for that group.
If you get a chance to rewind the game or watch the replay on NFL Network, just go back and watch the Giants kick coverage. You will see 81 Boykin in the screen. You will see Darnay Holmes, who had a really good second half of last season as a kick coverage guy.
No, they like his physicality on specials.
Number 30, man. Mm-hmm. He is in that picture at the end of every kick. He just seems to get down there and find a way. So, that's why Darnay Holmes is going to make this team. I know a lot of people were not happy with how he played defensive back over his first few years here. He was very inconsistent. Darnay Holmes is going to make this team.
He's got a shot.
His specials are really good.
Yeah, it'll be like I'm sure Hodgins, they weren't thrilled. I think he had the offensive holding penalty right on the opening kickoff.
He did. So, how many guys, especially with the new kickoff rule, on the back end of the roster are going to have to be really good specials guys? I talked about this with one of the Giants front office personnel guys about a month or so ago. And I said, if you remember when the Eagles had that run of about 6 years where they were the dominant special teams team in the league, the reason that they were is that their front office always reserved the back 3 to 4 roster spots, basically for guys who couldn't play a lick, but were incredible special teams guys. They actually did that. They were good enough that they could have the luxury of reserving the back end of the roster for special teams demons.
Yeah, must be nice.
Must be a hell of a way to run a team, right? To have that. And that's what they did. And specials were so good, they always had an edge on specials every single week. And that's why they did it. Well, so I said to the Giants executive, I said, I remember when the Eagles did that. Our team's going to have to do that now. With the new kickoff rule and some of the changes in personnel requirements to make this special teams unit work more effectively. And he said to me, we're not sure, but I will tell you this. There is no question about it. We are now going to mark a +1 next to any guy who can show they could do good things on specials.
Remember,
it's not just a little edge. It's going to be a +1.
And kickoff, because of the condensed formations now, without running all the way downfield, speed's not as important.
You need physicality.
You need bigger guys. So more linebackers, maybe some more safeties. I also wonder, and I'll get to Coach Marvin in a second. Marvin, you're going to have a couple minutes here because we got to go quick. But I wonder if at some point some teams might throw some offensive linemen out there on kick return to block.
Ooh. Those guys usually don't have fleet of foot.
You don't have to. They're lined up 5 yards away from the guy.
If
you put 2 or 3 of those guys next to each other and you run behind them in I know you can't use wedges anymore, but in But if you put them close to each other and you run behind them, you think these little puny guys running down on kick coverage want to go through those guys?
You better have quick, short step foot speed.
They would have to be tackles, not guards. They'd have to be
because
tackles.
the lumbering
Correct.
linemen
No,
would have no chance.
I agree with you on that. All right, let's go to Coach Marvin in Delaware. Just something I've been kind of mulling over in my head a
Okay.
little bit to see if it'll be interesting. All right, Coach, you got about 2 minutes here. I got to get lunch before they shut the cafeteria down. What's going on, pal?
How you doing, John and Paul?
Yep, good.
Hi.
I was just listening to you guys. Everybody's like, I'm not in a praising moment right now. I'm more of a, I sit and wait. I'm waiting for adversity. You don't know. We're not going to know what happens until this team hit adversity. You know, they saying that Dable did get along with the coaches. He likes the coaches, but that was a practice drill they doing it while they're doing no exhibition games.
Yeah.
Now, when you're really out there playing for keeps, meaning that scoreboard is for real, it's a whole different thing on the sideline. And that doesn't mean you hate each other. That just means you both are fighting for the same thing. And
No,
you're
of
fighting-
course. Absolutely.
So those days, my youth years and my high school years, you get cussed out on those sidelines. From your best friend to your enemy. That's just the way it is.
No, emotions and intensity are really high, Coach, and that's just how it goes. I get it.
Parcells was a ball of fire on the sidelines every game.
Yeah, so I don't want fans to thinking that that's the way it's going to be run because they saw it in a script last night.
No, that's fair. Very fair.
That's not going to happen. And whatever happened between the coaching staff last year, that happens too. You know, it just happens. It goes separate ways. He's the head coach, and you have to follow the head coach. And when a coordinator is wanting to run the team, and I had a coordinator like that one time, I had to let him go because he's not following the same storyline I have for the team. So you can only have one storyline for the team, not everybody giving their own story. You guys were talking about the coaching, how you coaching a team. You were talking about putting them in the best position to be successful, and that's how you got to do it. And that's why I always say, when you get a team that can compete and you can find out who can do what. Sometimes you got a superstar, but majority of your players, they only have one thing they do well. And you put them in that position at what they do well, and you help them perform doing what they can do best. And I talked to you a couple of months ago, John, and I told you about, I always went by the 3 Ps. I don't know if you remember the 3 Ps. And the 3 Ps are performance, practice, I'm sorry, I said it wrong. Prepare, practice, perform. If you do those 3 things, you'll be fine with the team. So you always got to prepare for those games. Then you practice what they're doing so you can understand what they're doing. And then you go on the field and you perform it. And that's what coaching has to do. You have to teach them and give them information that they can use while they're playing. And when you're coaching, a lot of times I don't worry about the coach on the other side of the field. I worry about his players. And my thinking was, are those players smarter than me?
Yeah, no, I got you.
They could be smarter than me if that guy on the other side taught him exactly how I think. And if he doesn't, I'm going to catch them eventually somewhere in that game.
All right, Coach, thank you very much for the call, man. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Yeah.
Have a good one, Coach. Call back again. I'll make sure you get all your points in, but we got to roll. That's Big Blue Kickoff Live presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the Giants. So we'll be back on Monday for another show at 1 p.m. We don't know how long we're going to be at 1, at least for next week. We haven't gotten what the practice schedule is going to look like the following week yet. We'll let you know when we do. We have practice on Sunday. Paul and I will be at that. Stay tuned for coverage. Everyone, have a great weekend.